Ginger Baker is widely considered one of rock's best, most influential drummers. His unusual playing style, which combines jazz and African and tribal drumming, helped make the band Cream international rock icons of the 60s, whose music is still popular today. Peter Ginger Baker was born on August 19, 1939 in London. From an early age, he was a wild child who pounded out rhythms on his desk when his teacher was out of the classroom. As part of a local gang, he and his friends would sometimes steal records from the local music store. His job was to distract the shop owner by listening to different artists on a turntable while the other gang members slipped records under their coats. It was then that Baker was exposed to jazz greats like Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, and Max Roach, and his interest in drumming took root. When Baker was 15, he was invited to a party. There, schoolmates who remembered his fondness for banging on desks asked him to try his hand at a real drum kit. He claims that when he sat down, he could miraculously play just from the hours he spent listening to jazz records. This was the beginning of everything for young Baker. Just 3 months later, he was touring in a jazz band. He then went on to play in the newly formed Graham Bond organization, which gave him early fame in the mid-60s. Soon after, Baker formed Cream, his most famous band with bassist Jack Bruce and guitarist Eric Clapton, who was already famous for his playing with the Yardbirds. Hailed as the first supergroup, Cream sold a whopping 15 million records worldwide and had chart-topping hits including I Feel Free, White Room, and most famously, Sunshine of Your Love. Due to personal conflicts in the band, Cream only lasted a few years. When Cream disbanded, Baker joined Clapton and keyboardist Steve Winwood in another short-lived supergroup, Blind Faith. The band released one album and broke up. Baker started his own band in 1969 called Ginger Baker's Air Force. This mini orchestra included his old friend Graham Bond. After a year, he could not afford to have the band anymore because of the expenses he had to pay for tours. The band then dissolved and Baker moved to Nigeria to study African drumming. He lived in Laos for 6 years and made an album with famous Afropop artist Fela Kuti. He also learned the sport polo during his stay, which would become a lifelong obsession. Unfortunately, he was forced out of the country by his business partners because he supposedly made enemies with the wrong people. From there, he went to live in Italy, where he hoped to make a living as an olive farmer. But Baker was a poor businessman with a habit of reckless spending. During this time, for example, he purchased 20 polo horses. This started a pattern of financial problems for Baker. In the early 1980s, he returned to London to look for any recording work he could find. With the promise of easy money, he later moved to Los Angeles to star in a low-budget action movie, which he now describes as terrible. Baker's next move was to Colorado in 1993. There, he raised polo horses and recorded a well-received jazz record with a new band. But when this business failed, Baker uprooted again, this time to Tulbagh, South Africa. The next 10 years were relatively stable for him. Baker married for the third time, but eventually, his finances and restlessness put an end to this chapter of his life too. Despite the ups and downs in his personal life, there is one place where Baker is always in total control, behind the drum kit. As he entered his 70s, a sold-out Cream reunion and a highly praised documentary, Beware of Mr. Baker, have brought a new generation of listeners to his music. As a result, Baker has been unusually active lately, recording a series of jazz and world music records and, once again, touring the world, doing what he loves.